Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Okay, so in case you all missed our video, our intro video last week, we have the new video where it introduces us when we go live. And so we're excited about that addition to the show. I'm Gwen Richardson, and I am your host for tonight on Black Authors Matter TV. And welcome to the show. And we welcome our regular viewers and our new viewers. We have another amazing lineup for tonight, and I'll be joined by my co-host, Dr. Rhonda Lawson, shortly. She's going to be joining us a little bit later in the show. But I do have, as usual, I have some announcements at the top of the show before we bring on our first guest. So first of all, our Black Authors Matter TV Award show will be May 17th, which is 2 weeks from tonight. All the votes have been submitted and then tallied. The deadline for voting was Saturday at midnight. We got thousands of ballots in for the people who are finalists. So that'll be an exciting night. We had an amazing time with it last year, and we're excited about an amazing time this year for the Black Authors Matter TV Awards. And what it is for those of you who may not know, over the course of a year, from March 9th of 2021 till March 1st of this year, every guest who has appeared on the show was part of a nominations process. And we had 16 categories. There were 5 finalists in each category after we had our first round of voting. And so the second round of voting, you all voted for your favorites. And so we're excited about the process. It's going to be an amazing night. Also, our National Black Book Festival for 2022 is in person this year. It's October 20th through the 22nd. If you are an author and you would like to participate with the vendor table, being able to sell your books and get the exposure, we are 79% full for our vending space. So you need to put down a deposit as soon as possible. Our standard registration ends the end of this month. So after May 31st, we go to late registration, and the cost goes up a little bit. The terms are different. So if you can, I would suggest you sign up this month. And then we also have the Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards, and that process is ongoing. The submission deadline is June the 6th. And what we decided to do, rather than, we had said that you have to have your book received by June the 6th, but with sometimes the uncertainty of the mail system or whatever delivery system you use, we've changed it to postmarked by June the 6th. So as long as it's postmarked by June the 6th, you can participate. We're going to have 3 books to give away tonight, but I'm going to wait until Rhonda's on so she can assist with the book giveaway process. And so we're going to do that after our first guest interview is done. So let me tell you our lineup for tonight, and then we'll bring on our first guest. Tonight we have Cheryl Wills. She's a journalist, author, and distinguished speaker. She has a new book about Black women in gospel. Dolen Perkins-Valdez. She's a best-selling, award-winning novelist, and she has a new book out called Take My Hand. Then we have Julia Royston, who's the author and CEO of BK Royston Publishing. She has a new book out. She's a publisher and an author. And we have an author of fiction and poetry and children's lit named Blaque Diamond. So, Rhonda, you're on the show. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Oh my goodness, my computer crashed right before the show. My bad. I am so sorry.
It's okay. We had our intro, and then, we have our intro now. So we're excited about the intro that we have. It really makes it official, and it helps with our podcast. because people hear their music before the podcast. It's not like just dead silence. So
Right.
we're bringing on our first guest, Cheryl Wills, and we have 3 books to give away, but I'm going to do that at the end of this first interview.
Okay.
Okay, so our first guest is Cheryl Wills. As I said, she is a journalist, an author, and a distinguished speaker. She has a new book out called Isn't Her Grace Amazing? And as a matter of fact, today is the official release date for the book. So congratulations on the release of your book, and welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. We want to unmute so we can hear you. Okay. All right. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV, and we're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, we hear you and
Are you
everything.
talking to me? I'm sorry,
Yes.
you talking to me? Oh, it's so nice to see you. I'm sorry. I was just thrown in here.
Oh,
Nice to meet you.
no, you're the star.
The
It's so
T-shirt
nice.
in the back.
You see the t-shirt?
Yes.
I'm so excited to be with you ladies. Congratulations to all the authors, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. My book is out today,
Right.
and I am so excited about it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we had an advanced reading copy of the book about a month ago that we gave away. When we do our advanced reading copy giveaways, we always ask a trivia question that people answer to get to win the book. So the viewers get to answer the questions. And I believe the question I asked was, name one of the women in your book. So I think the answer was Mary. I remember that. Somebody said Mary. So they got that answer. The first person to give the answer wins. So
That's
it was
wonderful.
decided. Now, your book is a coffee table book. It's a hardcover. Is that
Yep.
side? And
Can I show it?
yes, we want you to show it. That's
Impressive.
okay.
Hot off the
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So what I was gonna ask what led you to put the book together, but then I read that you're the granddaughter of a gospel singer.
Yeah.
So that was probably some of your inspiration. But which gospel singer are you the granddaughter of?
So, I'm Cheryl Wills, and my grandmother was Opal Wills, and they called her Sister Wills. And when she got older, they called her Mother Wills. And
Okay.
she never recorded on wax, to my tremendous regret. But she would raise the roof of every single church that she ever sang in. And I was her first grandbaby, as she called me. And I would literally sit on the piano stool with her every single Sunday morning. And I watched how my grandmother would move a crowd, the discipline and the piano playing. And then when the music reached its pitch, she would dart away from that seat and run shouting and dancing. And for me, it was just like, when I was very young, I was amazed at the power of this music. When you're a little kid, you don't know what you're looking at or listening to. And then when I got older, I started to realize my grandmother was singing in the tradition of Albertina Walker and Shirley Caesar and so many others, and Mahalia Jackson, and I could go on and on. And so when the opportunity arose for me to write this book, I said, I've lived this. My grandmother and I would listen to their records, the Caravan singing, "Oh Mary, don't you weep," and Mahalia Jackson and the power of singing "How I Got Over" and so forth. So this is a labor of love in honor of my grandma who passed away in 2019.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
she
sorry to
was-
hear that. But that means you had your grandmother for a minute, for a long
Amen.
time.
I'm grateful for it. I really am. She stayed with us longer than anyone else, and she outlived everybody, her sons, her husband.
Oh,
most of her siblings. Yeah. So this book is truly a love letter to her and to all of the women whose legacies, and this is very important for me. And I'm sure you're going to ask this, but so many of the women in this book, their legacies have been forgotten. And that to me is a tragedy. Clara Ward was larger than life. She helped teach Aretha Franklin how to sing. Okay. And I put on my Instagram, happy birthday, Clara Ward. Her birthday was just a few days ago. And you could tell people was like, who's that? And I'm like, who's Clara Ward?
Yeah, she had a group. I'm a PK. So
yes,
and my parents only listened to gospel. Now we could listen to secular music, but my parents only listened to gospel. The only time I ever heard them listen to secular music was when we were listening to it. But they played the radio. They had those 78 records.
That's right.
And then she have a group called the Ward Singers.
Of course, the
Clara Ward.
Ward singers, the famous Ward, because they traveled all over the world, and she kicked it up a notch. Not only did she sing in churches and so forth, but she sang at jazz festivals. She sang on the Flip Wilson show. She sang on national television. She would sing anywhere they invited her, and their songs were so catchy, like putting on my traveling shoes. I don't care if you were a Christian or not. You can't listen to Traveling Shoes and not tap your foot and clap your hands. You just can't. So she was belting out hit after hit after hit. And then when she died, in the early 70s, it was like, bye, Clara. And right. I find that horrible. And as a Black woman, for her to have fought her way to the top of the gospel charts and to have released hit after hit. And then when she dies, for the most part, her legacy dies with her. That's unacceptable to me. That's unacceptable. And we have to protect the legacy of our own, because if we don't, who will?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, especially in my generation, people think that the first famous gospel singer was Mahalia Jackson, and they don't realize the legacy that came before her.
That's correct. And they don't know who Sally Martin is, someone who's in my book. Sally Martin started the business of gospel. And I also, if we have time, I want to talk about how hard it was for women to get into this game. This was a man's business. The Dixie Hummingbirds, the Soul Stirrers, the Swan Silvertones. I could go on and on. This was
Mighty Clouds of Joy. That's another one.
Mighty Clouds of Joy.
My dad used to love them.
They were world famous as well. But it was a man's game. You understand? And for women, they had to not only fight racism, but they had to fight sexism, even in the church. And they had to make a way, as they would sing, out of no way. And so Sally Martin, going way back now, we're talking about years, just shortly after the dawn of the 20th century, Sally Martin's like, we have to stop making this beautiful music and just giving it away. So she created the business of, the music and the song sheets and so forth with Thomas Dorsey. And she helped establish choirs, and she brought order to what was really a chaotic situation where all of their precious material was just being given away and sold. So, and of course, she was also a fine singer in her own right. She preceded Mahalia Jackson, to your excellent point. And so, you also have people like Roberta Martin. When it was time for me to do this book, and I said, we have to have Roberta Martin in there, we could barely find a picture.
Wow.
How sad is that? And her Roberta Martin singers, was such an important group, and they revolutionized choirs all over this country. My grandmother used to sing her songs. God specializes. everybody sang that song. That song was created by the Roberta Martin singers, and we had trouble even finding a picture of this woman. Thank God the U.S. Postal Service created a stamp, and that's the one image we used. So,
Wow.
yeah, so to me, this is a labor of love. It really is, for anyone who appreciates gospel music, or even if you don't appreciate gospel music, you just appreciate good music. If you appreciate hip hop, you got to appreciate what these women did, because they laid the tracks for American music, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The movie, the documentary about the Clark sisters,
Yeah.
was
That was a great documentary.
it was
Wasn't
a
it
great
great?
depiction of how hard it was for women
That's right.
with their mother, Maddie Moss
Absolutely.
Clark.
And then Maddie Moss Clark went through a lot to
Right.
try to get her daughters to get the respect they deserved, and for them to be taken seriously, as we saw in that amazing movie. That movie was the
It was
bomb,
really
okay?
good. It was really
I
good.
watched it. I watched that series twice.
I did
And-
too.
Yeah.
Because I
and,
missed a few things, The first time you watch something, you always miss something.
Exactly. And I'm looking for this amazing picture of the Clark sisters. This is so dynamic. They were pioneers. All of the women in this book were pioneers in some way. I know that people are starting to hit me up on social media saying, oh, why didn't you have this person or that person? And I'm like, first of all, we couldn't have everybody. There are countless women. Let me just tell you, I found it. Look at this picture of the Clark sisters.
I was going to ask you to show some of the imagery.
Isn't that phenomenal?
It's
Look at them.
beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful. This is the kind of book that the two people who really would appreciate this book are passed. And it was my brother and my dad. They would have really appreciated this book.
I know.
Now I
makes
need to
a
think
great
about somebody to
mother's-
give it to.
Yeah, it makes a great, it is really for that generation too, but it's also for the current generation to learn. Like, if you learn Mary, if you love Mary, if you love Yolanda Adams, if you love all these CeCe Winans, and that's CeCe Winans on the cover, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to know who Albertina Walker is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Please be patient with me. God is not through with me yet.
Yeah.
So this book, the pictures really tell an incredible story. Even, maybe people don't like to, read a lot, and that's fine. I've had people tell me I don't buy books. I just watch movies, and that's fine too. But the pictures really tell the story. If you just went picture by picture, this is a beautifully illustrated book. And I'm just so proud to give these women their just due. I really am.
Well, now, I know that, growing up, you were in church all the time with your grandmother. And as you grew up, you grew up in the church. So I guess my question is two-part. One, when did you really gain an appreciation? Because I was in church all the time as well as a child. I went to Baptist training union. I went to Sunday school, then I went to church, then I went to Baptist training union, I went to service, and I went to choir rehearsal. So I grew up in church. As I got older, I'm like, okay, well, I want to do what my friends are doing, but that foundation never left me. So
That's
I'm
right.
quite sure that same thing happened for you as well. But when did you really start to appreciate the history that you were seeing?
That's such a great question. Thank you for that. So to give you a little context, my parents met in a holiness church. So I got a double dose. Both of my grandfathers were preachers, and both of their wives were first ladies of the church. So I had it coming from me like.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so to your point, there's something in a verse in the Bible that says, raise up a child in the way they should go, and they will not depart from it. And I tell you, that is the gospel truth, because as I grew older, and just like you said, you start to see your friends, they're not in church all the time. They appear appear to be having a good time, that is until one of your friends gets killed. That is until one of your girlfriends does something that gets her in deep trouble. And then you look and you realize what the church family was doing was protecting you, covering you. And my grandmother used to talk about covering you by the blood. Because, you know, when you're surrounded by this, you think the grass is always greener, right? But when you get out there and you see that it's not green, that grass is actually weeds that will tear you up, you start to appreciate that you had that hedge of protection. And I, to your point, to your great question, I realized that when I was about 13 and my father got killed. He was a deacon in my grandfather's church. You know, this was a family affair, our church business. And my father, you know, decided, you know what, the grass is greener. Let me go out there. Let me put this guitar down. Let me stop listening to this gospel music and let me get out in the world. Well, he got killed being out in the world, and I was 13. And it was at that moment that I truly realized that the church protects you. And it covers you. And even if you make a mistake, you'll fall face forward. You won't fall back, or as they used to say, backslide. You know, you'll always be protected so you won't implode, you know, sadly, like my father did, because he completely just said, I'm out. And, you know, as a little girl watching this, then I realized the power of what my grandmother was singing. When she hit that piano and closed her eyes and threw her head back, and I saw the whole church rise, I was like, oh, this is what she's singing about. This is a mother who lost her son, and she could still sing to the glory of God. And when I eulogized my grandmother, one thing I said, I couldn't talk long because it was just so emotional, but I said, my grandmother never let this world steal her joy. And that's what this book represents for me. Women who never let this world steal their joy. They kept going in spite of it all, and they lived what they sang about.
Well, that's amazing. You know, one thing that besides the grass being greener, which is something that, you know, you want to do what everybody else is doing, you know. But the other thing, I thought, until I really became a full adult, I know I was college age, I thought everybody was a Christian. You know, I didn't know they were bad people. You know, I just thought, you know, everybody was, if they weren't, you know, living it, they still had the foundation. I really did not get to venture. My parents kept us on a kind of a short leash. So we didn't get to really venture out. We went to school, of course, but they kept us, we were on curfew, you know. They did let us have fun, but I just didn't realize I was an adult before I realized there are bad people. Now, some people are bad because they didn't get enough love or nurturing or whatever. They got in the wrong crowd. But there are still some bad people in this world. So I had to learn that. That's what I had to learn. I wasn't as much about the grass being, although, you know, I think everybody strays from church. If you grow up in church and you never stray, you're really, to me, you're probably in the small, unique category. Because most people stray for a while, you know, trying to.
That's intriguing. What are you telling me?
And then they realize, like you said, there is nothing out there. I mean, really, the world does not really offer you anything except, you know, heartache for the most part. And you need that foundation.
You know, you can tell a young person that until you're blue in the face. My grandma said that, but that's something that people have to realize for themselves.
They have to experience it for themselves. And sometimes it's seeing somebody else do it. That's really better than you having to fall. If you can learn from somebody else falling. I'm not advocating somebody else falling. I'm saying if you can see somebody else fall and learn a lesson. You don't have to experience everything yourself, you know. And that's why, you know, trying to tell your children, you know, I've already seen this, or either I did it or somebody I know did it, didn't work. or several somebodies I know did it didn't work. So, but when you're young, you think your parents are, you think they don't know. You think you know more than they do until you find out you really don't know very much, and that's a process. So I just think this book that you've done is amazing. I'm thinking in my mind, I'm trying to, and I know who I'm going to gift it to. But I just think what you've done to highlight these women that really haven't gotten their due. And you did it in such a beautiful way with the coffee table book.
And I said it in a joking manner a little earlier, but do you plan to maybe do a volume 2?
I'm gonna tell you what we are planning. We're planning a documentary.
Wonderful.
Yeah, because we want to, these are women past and present, but many are still very much alive. Like Shirley Caesar, Dorothy Norwood is still with us, and she goes way back. And of course, Mary and Yolanda Adams and Tremaine Hawkins. And, these women are still on the road, and they have an incredible history, and their talent is out of this world. Yolanda Adams performs for kings and queens and
everywhere.
presidents and prime ministers.
Yeah.
So we are working on that, but I would love to do a volume 2 about the men. I think it was right that the women went first, but I would love to also, acknowledge the men, from Thomas Dorsey to the Dixie Hummingbirds to my favorite Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers.
Okay.
Gospel music really it sprang from spirituals, and our family sang these spirituals on slave plantations, and it was empowering music that helped them cope with a living hell. And then sprang gospel, and then from gospel, here comes everything else. Here comes rock and roll, here comes jazz, here comes the blues, here comes hip hop, so R&B, of course. So I think when you really peel away the layers of gospel music, you find American music.
Yes, that's a great statement.
Right? That I think that is so key. And you will hear it in everything. You'll hear it in jazz, you'll hear it in Louis Armstrong, you'll hear it in Ray Charles, especially Ray Charles. He used to literally copy the gospel groups. So
it is an American genre. I mean, it's the roots of it are here.
No question. And I'm a strong believer in respecting your roots, respecting the originators who made all of this possible. Hip hop is all the rage, of course, and we love hip hop, but you can't tell hip hop story without R&B. You can't tell R&B story without the blues. You can't tell the blues story without gospel. So everything, all roads lead back to gospel.
Okay, that's amazing. Rhonda, did you have a question?
No, I was just asking, where can we find the book for people who want to purchase a copy?
Thank you. It is available in bookstores everywhere. I'm so pleased to say thank you, HarperCollins. Amistad is amazing. This was an incredible experience to work with a major publisher. And of course, you're a click away, Amazon.com. Come right to your house, BarnesandNoble.com. It's in Target. It's everywhere.
Right.
That's wonderful. I have one more question before we go. You named a few contemporary singers that are in the book, and are there any more contemporary people that besides the ones you named?
Absolutely. So what I did, and I'm so proud of this, we broke it up into Queen Mothers, Sisters in Song, Architects of the Melody, Crossover Queens, and Still She Shouts. And when it comes to that last chapter, and Still She Shouts, that's where we talk about Dottie Peoples. He's an on-time God. Yes, he is. I mean, the way she told, don't you love her singing that? And of course, Tamala Mann is right off the top.
All right.
Oh, yes. And Tremaine Hawkins, Kim Burrell did a little promotional video for us. Yeah, of course, Yolanda Adams, and on and on and on. So we have a lot of, even though we pay homage to those who have passed on and are currently singing in that heavenly choir, we also give props to those who are still pressing on and singing. Hallelujah.
Okay. Well,
Well,
Cheryl, thank you. Oh,
that it's also available in audiobook.
Yes, audiobook, Kindle.
okay.
It is everywhere, widely available. Whatever you want, we got it for you. We even have a Spotify. You go online, you'll find everything.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and congratulations on your book release date. And I'm sure the book will do amazing.
Thank you.
And
thank you both for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you, lovely ladies. And as an author of 5 books, it meant everything for me to meet you and your listeners and viewers. I appreciate what you're doing because yes, Black authors absolutely do matter.
Amen.
okay. Well, thank you so much. And you have a great evening. We hope to see you soon when you do your volume 2.
Oh, I'll be back.
Okay.
Y'all take care. And thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay. So, we have 3 books to give away before we bring on our next guest. So pay attention, everybody. This is going to be somewhat fast. This is a book called Rain Rising by Courtney Comrie. And I guess it's just like a glare, but it is a young adult fiction. And the question for this book, the author's name is at the very top. Can you see it, Rhonda? Courtney. It's Courtney Comrie.
Yes.
And it's called Rain Rising. And the trivia question for this book is the main character is Rain, because that's why it's called Rain Rising. What's her best friend's name? So this is Rain Rising by Courtney Comrie. What's the main character's best friend's name? You can win that book. This is the next one. It's called Map Maker. This is also YA fiction. And it's by Lisa Moore Ramey. Her name's at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see that? Okay. Lisa Moore Ramey. Ramee. So the trivia question for this book is, it's called Map Maker. The main character, Walt, has a twin sister. What is Walt's twin sister's name?
What, in Map Maker?
It's called Map Maker. And the author is Lisa Moore Ramey, Ramee. And the final book is called Patience is a Subtle Thief. The author's name is African. So I'll just say the first name is Abi, A-B-I. Patience is a Subtle Thief. And this is, again, it's about a main character. The main character, first name is Patience. That's why the book is called Patience is a Subtle Thief. But what is Patience's last name? So for this book, what is Patience's last name, the main character? This one, what is the main character's twin sister's name? And this one, what is the main character's best friend's name?
All right,
Okay.
I need the name of the third book again.
Patience is a Subtle Thief. S-U-B-T-L-E-T.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna bring on our next guest, Dolen Perkins-Valdez. And
We
she,
already have 2 answers, by the way.
okay.
Nara is Rain's best friend.
Okay, we're bringing our guest on. Nara is Rain's best friend, yes. Okay, so Dolen Perkins-Valdez has a brand new book out called Take My Hand, and she is our guest on Black Authors Matter TV. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I love your hair.
Thank you.
It is beautiful, gorgeous locks.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the release of your book. And from my research, it looks like it's doing well. It came out April 12th. So it's historical fiction. Do you have a copy of it? Well, I see it behind you, but
I have one
yeah.
behind me. I have
Okay.
one here.
Okay. All right. So, Dolen, you had books prior to this. So some people may be familiar with your previous work. Tell us about your previous book, and then we'll, you have actually a couple of books, 2 or 3 books before this one.
So this is my third book.
Okay.
My first book was actually published 12 years ago called Wench.
Okay.
And then my second book came out 7 years ago called Balm.
Okay.
So,
BALM.
mhm.
Okay. And they're all historical fiction. Is that correct?
Yes, the first 2 were set in the 1800s. And this one actually is set in 1973. When I first started writing this, I didn't think it was historical fiction. I thought it was contemporary fiction. And then my teenager said to me, "You mean way back in the 1900s?"
No, your teenager did not make us feel old like that.
She did. And, for them, it's like last century kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, that made me realize that it was historical fiction, and really also that I needed to do some research, even though I was alive when this book took place. I did need to do
historical fiction taking place at on the year that I was born.
Is that the year you were born?
I was born in 1973. That can't be historical fiction yet.
Well, it is. Any book in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't know about 90s, but
no, actually, I love books that are set in the 70s because I believe it was such a pivotal time for culture when it came to fashion, when it came to our hair,
music.
Music. We were coming right off of the civil rights movement. So there's so much about the 70s that I'm quite sure that your book is rich with all of that.
It is. I have a music playlist.
Wow.
Because I have so much music in the book. People, say to me, "What, even though this is a tragic story, was there anything fun about writing the book?" And I'm like, yes, being in the 1970s is fun in a lot of ways. There's like you say, the fashion, the rise of afros. My main character, wears an afro and her daddy doesn't like it, and the rise of bell bottoms, and and there was a change in music happening between the 60s and the 70s. We were getting more into the disco era, but in 1973, it's Gladys Knight and the Pips, it's Booker T and the MGs, it's a great music moment. So all of that is in here, and that was actually the fun part of it.
Yeah, disco was more in the late 70s.
Late 70s, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the premise of the book.
So the book is inspired by a real life story of these 2 little girls, the Ralph sisters, who were sterilized without their family's permission. And in the book, the main character is a nurse at the federally funded family planning clinic. It's a tongue twister. Federally funded family planning clinic that performed the surgery on the girls. The clinic actually existed. And in my book, the 2 girls are India and Erica Williams, and they are 11 and 13 years old. Their father is illiterate, and when the nurse brings the form for him to sign, he thinks he's signing for them to get more birth control, but he's actually signing for them to get tubal ligations.
Wow. So was this based on actual people, or was it more situational?
Well, it's situational because I didn't interview any of these real life people.
Okay.
I never found any nurses who worked at the clinic. I never interviewed the sisters, the Ralph sisters, who are still alive and well. I never reached out to them. So I really use my imagination to just use what I could find in the newspapers and then fill in. I was really curious about these nurses because I wanted to know what it would have been like to be a nurse working at that clinic and have something like this happen under your watch, and how that could devastate you, really for life, and so that's Civil, the main character of my book.
Well, it's
Okay.
interesting because I know that there are still stories of people who were basically given tubal ligations against their will. We still see stories like that popping up in recent years, actually.
That's right. We know as recently as the 2010s, women in California state prisons were being sterilized against their will, coerced into sterilizations, really. There have been allegations from a whistleblower that some women in immigrant detention facilities have been forcibly sterilized. There have been allegations that women in the state of Tennessee were told that in order to receive benefits, they would have to be sterilized. So it's still an abuse, particularly against our most vulnerable populations. That's really where we're still seeing it, among vulnerable women who are coerced or who are told one thing, and they go in to have a baby, to have a C-section or whatever, and they wake up and they've been sterilized.
Mhm. It also, and this was something that I think there's probably a statute of limitations on this. Hopefully there is, it's passed. But anyway, in a former life, one of my first businesses was doing medical transcription for government agencies. And we did a lot for the Veterans Administration, but we also did a lot for the Indian Health Service. And part of what we did was surgical records. And we did surgical records for any medical facility or hospital. And one thing with the different institutions, they had a variety of surgical procedures in the records. They had all different kinds. The Indian Health Service, 80% of their medical records were for tubal ligations. And
Wow.
I thought that was odd to me, but I was under a non-disclosure. So this was in what years was this? The early 90s, I want to say. I thought that was odd. And we did medical records. Well, of course, the VA is mostly males, but we did it for other general hospitals, that had a variety of patients. But that stood out to me. And see, these are people on reservations, most of them. It's the vulnerable populations that you talk about. And most people don't know what goes on. I mean, you don't really hear that much about Native Americans. But it was so many tubal ligations that I was like, this has to be out of the norm,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is a form of eugenics, right? What we're talking about is population control.
Yes.
And it is something, it's interesting because a lot of us who are not part of those vulnerable populations sort of take these rights for granted. And I heard someone say, it's hard to fight for a right that you think you already have. And I think, what I hope that this book will remind people is that there are still women out there who are susceptible to this kind of coercion, to this kind of exploitation, right? That we still have forces at work in our society that don't want certain women to have children.
Right. Now, how did you come up with your title? Take My Hand.
Well, I didn't come up with the title. I had a hard time titling it. I can't even remember what my manuscript title was. I know it was bad. And so when I took it to the publisher, it was sort of untitled. And we went through a million titles. We just could not find one. And then my publicist, Craig Burke, said, why don't we call it Take My Hand? Because it was really important to me for it to be a title of the era, it's Montgomery, Alabama, which had such a rich civil rights history. And 1973, people are feeling like we have gained some rights, with the Voting Rights Act, with the Civil Rights Act. But then this happens, and then these other things happen in the 70s to sort of remind us that we have a long way to go. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment, for example. So this title comes from Precious Lord, Take My Hand, which of course is a gospel song written by a songwriter named Thomas Dorsey,
Oh, excuse me.
made famous, bless you, made famous by Mahalia Jackson. And then of course, Aretha Franklin has a beautiful rendition of it.
Well, we just had, I don't know if you saw our first interview. I got a coughing fit.
It's okay, did it go down the wrong pipe?
Yeah, our previous guest's book was about gospel music.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about Thomas Dorsey and Mahalia Jackson.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, so this ties right into it.
It feels like that's going to be a theme for tonight, to talk about gospel music and its influence on our culture, on basically on our civilization as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But what I wanted to ask you a little earlier is that as you were talking, it made me think about the women in Africa, what they go through with what is it called? The female
Circumcision.
Yes, the procedure. Mhm.
Right. Where they, where they were basically coerced in these as well. I mean, it seems like a woman's body has been politicized and basically taken over in so many different cultures that I'm really glad that you're bringing it up. And then Lydia, who's one of our dedicated viewers, she said that this is in the news, that every woman should have a right to her bodies, where there are too many men making decisions on women's bodies without consulting the woman.
Yes, I mean, you look at, I didn't watch the news today because I just couldn't take it. But when you typically look at people talking about this issue on television, it's typically men. It is crazy to me. But if you go into the communities, you have a lot of activist organizations that are led by women. The conversation at the community level is by women, but the conversation at the policy level is led by men. And that's a real disconnect. That's a real problem that we have to close that gap. It's a real problem when, somebody asked me today to give a statement on how this issue affects men, right? And I had to really give that some thought. Of course it does affect men because it takes two to tango, but it's so, disproportionately affects women and our lives. I mean, everything from our ability to enter the workforce to our ability, it's a women's health issue. Like, reproductive justice is about our health, not just about having babies or not having babies, not just about contraception or not using contraception. It is about our health. And for those of us who have been in these situations of being pregnant or having difficult pregnancies or having, postpartum depression, there are a lot of things that happen around pregnancy. Black women particularly have miscarriages. And, you can have a really violent miscarriage, and Black women have higher rates of all kinds of things, higher rates of maternal morbidity, higher rates of infant mortality. We suffer from all of those things in the reproductive realm disproportionately higher than any other population in the country. So this is something particularly affecting Black women, I feel.
So are you going to be, or have you started maybe going on the speaking circuit to just bring more attention to this issue?
I need to. The book just came out, but I have representation at the Speakers Bureau. I haven't filled out the sheet yet that she needs for me to fill out so she can put me out there, but I need to because I have a lot to say. I have a lot of thoughts. I don't have a lot of answers. I will say that. I don't know
But
what
you
the
can
answer
start the
is.
conversation and you never know.
Yeah, I have yes. Mhm. And it's so funny because I had a book event in Seattle last week, and I said something like, well, I don't think my book will change any kind of like state legislation. You know, I'm always very hesitant to say that like fiction will make policy change. And a woman came up to me at the end of the signing and said, well, I'm a state legislator. And this conversation tonight really affected me. So those moments can
Washington,
happen.
DC, you never know who's going to be in your audience.
No, and you
Never
never know how your work is going to impact people. Now, I
Never
have a
know.
question about this. Why do you have so much time between your book releases?
Good question.
No.
You know, I have kids, you know. You can see
Okay,
them
well, you can end it
here.
there.
And I teach, you know, I have a full-time
Okay.
job, you know. So I'm working. I have been raising kids. Right after Bomb came out, right before Bomb came out, I had a baby.
Okay.
And so
I
now
understand it.
she's 8, and so she's now starting to get to that age where mommy has a little more time. So my hope is to get a little bit faster, but I will say I'm a slow writer. It takes me a long time to really feel like I've done the research and to feel like I've wrapped my head around it to get into the story. And I'm a perfectionist, so I don't let it go until I really feel it's ready. I don't rush it, but I do need to get faster. I'm going to try to get faster.
Well, I'm not encouraging you to go faster. Some people, you know, we've had some authors that come on, they pump out books. I'm amazed at how some people are able to just write 50,000 words in 60 days. And I'm like, what? How do you come up with all the dialogue and all the backstory?
The author of The Water Dancer said it took him 10 years to write that book.
Okay. So, I mean, some books take a long time.
They want to put a lot of time into the research and making sure it's right. And you also said, you know, you're a mother, you're still teaching. So you have all these things going on. You don't have to pump the books out. Right now you're doing it, I guess, as a labor of love for you to write the books that you write. Would that be a way to characterize it?
Yes, you know, the hard part, of course, is that when you take that line between books, you have to reactivate your readership. You have to remind them because they move on.
Okay.
You know, new writers come out, younger writers come out, you know, everybody wants to read the latest, hottest writer. And, you know, you wake up one day, like I woke up one day and said, okay, I am no longer a debut writer. I'm no longer young and hip. You know, people say yes, ma'am to me. You know, so I'm slow. I'm slower with everything. You know, I'm just slow with everything.
You know, one thing about taking more time to write a book is that the content is not formulaic. It tends not to be formulaic. Because a lot of times when people are pumping out books, like a book, 2 books a year, or sometimes more than that, there's a formula. It's almost like a cookie cutter, you know, and it's filled in. And when you take longer, sometimes you can have a fresher outcome.
Sometimes. Now, I do know some writers who are really fast and really good. And I don't know how they do it. But they don't have day jobs. I will say that they write full time. The ones I know who are fast and put out quality stuff, they do it as a job.
Okay.
And so
and that makes sense.
I could do it as a job. Yeah.
Because they're writing 8, you know, they're dedicating 8 hours or maybe more to writing. So, you know, during the day. And then when you have children too, like you were describing, when your kids are small, a lot of things go on hold.
They do.
You know, because you just it's only so many hours in a day, and you have to get some rest. You have to rest sometimes. You know.
That's right.
So
and
when
people forget school lets out at 3:00. You know, which to me is, I mean, my day ends at 3. I don't get till 5.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, like normal working people do. I have to stop what I'm doing and go get the kid.
What grade do you teach?
So I teach at American University.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So you do college teaching, so you have a little more free time, more flexible
A
schedule.
little more flexibility. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I know your book Wench, when it first came out, we still had the bookstore. What year did it come out?
2010.
Yeah, we still had the bookstore. We still had a brick and mortar when that came out. And I remember it got a lot of exposure and publicity, which was really good.
It did in paperback. The hardcover, I have to say, the hardcover was just Black women book clubs all over the country. You know, this is back when the publishing industry was underestimating Black women readers. They just didn't know that we read the way we do.
Right.
And so I was, calling in, usually it was the phone because nobody was Zooming. I think it might've been a couple of Skypes, but for the most part, it was phone calls. I was doing a lot of calls into book clubs. I still have lots of pictures that book clubs sent me. They bought the hardcover and the publishing world took notice of that. And so I didn't get a lot of publicity for the hardcover, very, very little publicity for the hardcover. But when the paperback came out, because the hardcover had done so well, then I had a huge marketing push and tour and everything.
Okay.
Well, I want to read a comment to you from Stephanie Burnham, who's another one of our dedicated viewers. She watches every week. But she said, it's amazing to see you here on Black Authors Matter TV after seeing you for the first time in a Washington Post article on April 15th. And the article introduced her to 3 of your books. And now she says she has all 3 of your books after reading that article. And she likes the way that Tina Marie Ansa said, Perkins-Valdez manages to get even the male characters on point. For example, the girl's country father, Mace, is a portrayal rarely seen in literature. A man of color who is uneducated and illiterate, but knowledgeable, sexy, smelly, and broke.
I love that line too. And, I say that male characters are still hard for me to write. I think I'm better with women characters. Civil, I feel like she came to me fully formed. Like she was just in my face. Like, okay, this is what you're going to write. This is what I did. This is what I think. This is how I feel. I really felt like Civil, I didn't have to work hard on because she just came to me. Mace was harder. And although, I'm from Memphis and I've known a lot of Maces, and I knew exactly when, Tina McElroy Ansa wrote that, I knew exactly why she got it. She's a Georgia writer. And I said, every woman from the country knows a Mace, Yeah. And, if you've ever been into one of those little, roadside juke joint type places, Mace is the one that comes over and buys you a beer and he's real respectful, but he will fight somebody if they mess with him in there, and he's, and he's got his truck outside, but he's cleaned up for the night. And so that's Mace to me. He is, I have an uncle who's a truck driver, and for years and years, as he called it, a tractor trailer, he drove a tractor trailer. And that's my good looking uncle, And so, but Mace, of course, has lost his wife in the book. And so he is trying very hard to be a father to those girls and feeling like he's failing. And so I really wanted to get into what it means for Black men during this time who are laborers and who are doing the best they can, but don't always get it done. And how do you hold on to your humanity and your manhood? How do you hold on to that? And that's what I was really digging through with Mace. He's one of my favorite characters I've written now.
You say that it's hard to write male characters. So what do you feel you have to do to really get into that? Because what you just described is, it doesn't sound like it's hard to write a male character. You're in that psyche. So what do you have to do to get into those psyches so you can create these believable characters?
Well, that's why it takes 7 years. I have to sit with them. You know, I have to sit with him. I've known Macy's, but I needed to get in his head. I had to sit with him, spend some time with him. I didn't have to spend a lot of time with Sybil. Like I said, she came to me fully formed. Mace, I had to spend a little time with and get to know him and really understand his pride and really understand his, when he gets mad at Sybil for helping him, he gets mad at her for helping him. And I needed to really get into that feeling that he has of shame, of needing her help and of accepting her help and why that makes him feel the way it does. It's a pride thing. But at the same time, I wanted to show that he's also soft and gentle and kind too, and that just took me a while to sit with him.
Man, it's
Well, I know I want people to appreciate the work that you've done. I'm so excited that one of our viewers read about your book in the Washington Post, and then you're here on Black Authors Matter TV, because the purpose of this show is to bring you all the latest people who are releasing books, but also some of the people who've been around for a long time. They may not have a new book out, but they've been involved in the industry. So Dolen, I can't wait to dig into this book. It's on my list of to be purchased. And I'm really excited for you in your third release. Thank you for being a guest on the show. And I'm assuming people can get the book anywhere books are sold. And if they want to connect with you on social media, we do Dolen Perkins-Valdez? Is that?
I put your Penguin Random House link into the chat. So
okay,
we'll be able to find you there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation, y'all.
Thank you for the great conversation.
Yeah.
Wish we had longer.
Yeah, it goes by fast, but continued success with the book and whatever your upcoming project is.
Okay, bye.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Okay, before we bring on our next guest, Julia Royston, I do want to wrap up our book giveaway so I know who these books are going to. So I know somebody won Rain Rising. They got Nara as the answer. Who was that?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. Okay. Who else? Okay, Stephanie. Okay. Did anybody win the Map Maker book?
I'm checking.
The answer for that was Van.
Is the answer to any question Adewale?
Yes.
Okay, that's Stephanie again.
Okay, that's this book is Adewale was the answer. Okay, Stephanie again. Okay, so did anybody win the Map Maker book?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, I already told the answer, but maybe they might not have been paying attention, so we'll see. So to win the Map Maker book, the main character's name is Walt, and he has a twin sister. What is his twin sister's name to win this book? It is Map Maker by Lisa Moore Ramey. So if you want to win that one, answer it at your leisure before the end of the show, and we will send it to you. So our next guest is Julia Royston, and she's been on the show before. She's also the mastermind behind BK Royston Publishing, and along with her husband. But I get the feeling that her situation is similar to mine, that your husband doesn't mind you being the public person, the public face. I'll put it like that.
Hi, good evening to everyone. That's that working from home life, you know. Okay. That it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna get some tea, right? Like,
okay. So Julia, you just for the audience, I know most of our regular viewers know who you are, but we have new people on every week. So just let people know all of the authors that are under your umbrella, the number, how many, and then how many of your own books you've done, and then you have a new book that you're on to tell us about.
Right. So first off, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure seeing Ms. Gwen Richardson and Dr. Lawson. How are you, love? You doing all right?
I'm wonderful. It's great to see you again.
Good. I'm doing good. It's always great to see you. So I'm Dr. Julia Royston. I own VK Royston Publishing and Royal Media and Publishing. So those are two publishing companies. I have 200 and it changes all the time, but we're close to 250 authors. I've published 350 books and I've written 68.
Come on, 68 books.
Boy, your number is bigger than I thought.
69 and 70 are at the illustrator. Yay!
So what did you do? I'm sorry.
69 and 70 are with the illustrator.
Oh, okay. Now, when you say you've written 68, are they all published?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Because some people write books and then they say I've written 10, but only 2 have been published. And I'm like,
No.
But I mean, to each his own. I'm like, why do that? Why write them and put them on the shelf? But maybe
why do people hold? Okay, so this is a sidebar, but
okay,
don't hold on to them forever because I have literally, is it 2 people, 3 people? I've had 3 people die before they got the manuscript done.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so they didn't get it to me in time. One lady had been held on for many, many years. And I said, okay, just give me the manuscript. I was willing to, work with her family and everything. She passed away. So, life is not promised to us. If you're going to write, let's get it done.
Life is short.
Very short, very short.
And if you want to get some information out there, do it.
Yes.
I have 2. I have 2 books I'm working on now. One's mostly it's a children's book. So, with children's books, is the illustrations are what take the time.
Exactly.
And the other one I've been working on, but I'm determined because I talked to myself the other day, and I said, you know what, Guinevere? That's what when I talk to myself, I use my whole first name.
Oh wow.
I said, Guinevere, the book is not going to write itself. So
right.
I had to talk to myself.
I understand. I totally do. I talk to myself too. When I'm working on something, I'm like, this, what happens. You know how this works. Let's get this done.
Yeah, that's the way to flush out ideas and all kinds of things. So tell us about your new book.
Okay, so just in case those of you who are thinking about writing, wanting to write, let me just give you this news flash. Right through here, right in this space, at least for the last 2 years, African-American, diverse, inclusive children's books are one of the hottest items on the market. And so I have been kind of on I have been on a campaign to help people not only write children's books as well, because when I go to events, and I'm one of those persons even prior to 2022 who went to in-person events. Yeah, I did the Lysol and the Clorox wipes and the sanitizer and the mask, but I went to in-person events. And having done those in-person events, I sold a lot of books. And there are Black families. They have come with babies in strollers. They've come with the husband is just as involved as the wife is. Most of the time you think it's just mothers and children. No. There are men that are just as involved in what their children are reading. They want diverse books. They want books with darker brown hued children, lighter hued children, biracial children. So that is a news flash. However long that train's gonna run, I'm gonna be on it for a while. And so I'm doing boot camps. Ma'am, oh yeah, we're gonna ride that thing till the wheels fall off. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know what? People are always having babies. It's not gonna be. It's always gonna be some new readers.
I try to tell people that, and they're okay. So we'll talk about that. But some people talk about the expense of children's books. Now, I've heard some ridiculous amounts, and you know, and you can do that. But if you don't have the budget for it, make sure that you get some good illustrations that look good and are done well. But it's like anything else. Okay, so how long have some children's books? Remember when you read them in school, they still are classics. So you're still reading them to this day. So,
Right.
you know, we just have to, just like the previous guest was, you know, you don't know about how much African-American people read, and the market has basically, and there's a major publisher going out now looking for African-American authors to publish traditionally. So, you know, it's hot because the industry is, when they start making those calls, you know, the industry is looking for you. So that's kind of a publisher's business sidebar tip. So what I have written is, it's a series.
Okay.
So my book number 1 is Terrence is Terrific. It basically introduces Terrence.
Okay.
He is, I wanted to write, now the previous author said she struggled with writing from the male point of view. I'm writing more from the male point of view all the time, even though I had 2 younger sisters and didn't have a brother. So, but Terrence is a boy. He's an only child. He has 2 professional parents. His dad's an accountant. His mother is she's a caterer. So she's a chef of sorts. So she's usually home when he's home. His dad, he works out of the home and inside the home. And they have told him since he was a baby that he's terrific. They have empowered him, encouraged him, etc. But there's always a bully who tells you that you're not so terrific. Yeah. So this is the introduction of Terrence the Terrific. I have been asked about the whole bullying process and having something, but normally it usually has girls on the cover or something else. So I wanted to make sure that I had not only girl books, but I had something to represent the boys, and I wanted a chocolate boy. I wanted a darker hue boy. Okay, so that's book number 1. Book number 2, Terrence is into science. He loves STEM lab. So that's one of the things the bully teases him about, because he's a nerd of sorts. But, you know, but his mama says, we don't care. We're going to be a scientist. You're going to be great one day. So he's really into STEM lab. So that's number 2. And then book number 3 is Terrence's team. So he has a friend, and I made sure that she was lighter hued because I'm trying to represent all of what we look like. All Black people do not look alike. And so Terrence's team, so Paris, her locker is right next to his. She's always taking up for him when the bully comes along. And so she's like his ride or die sidekick. So in book 1, Terrence does something that he should not have done. He left his paper that he needed to turn in that day. He left it at home, and he left school and ran home to get it. And so when he comes back, he gets superpowers. And I'm not going to do the spoiler alert, but so he basically has superpowers. Lightning strikes him, and he has superpowers. So he's learning to manage those superpowers in book 1, book 2, and finally in book number 3. So that's what Terrence is about. I wanted to appeal to middle grades.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, more. It's a chapter book, so there's you know, so some of the ones who are kind of afraid, they're like, "Ooh, that's got a lot of words, Miss Royston." And at the end, I have you know, a little imagery, but not much. But I wanted to appeal to high readers. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, did you use beta readers of sorts in that age group to kind of help you to gauge your...
Well, at the same time I was writing, I had, I do writing workshops with schools, with young people around the same age, 4th, 5th, heading into 6th. Now, even though he's in middle school, high readers, 3rd and 4th and 5th, they're always reading on higher levels. So I had them read it, and I had them, they gave me the feedback. Yeah, it's good, Miss Royston. I like it. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. They were trying to be cool that they really didn't enjoy it, but they did. They really liked it, and they really enjoyed it. So so I really wanted to appeal to the middle grades, the little ones, the little square books. They get a lot of press. They get a lot of, because we want them to learn or read early. So I get that. I'm a librarian, K through 12. I know all about that. But I still have to appeal to the middle grades. And then I have some that's for middle and high, because the older kids, they still read. We don't think they do, but they still read. So I wanted something that would appeal to a high reader in third grade all the way up to, and seventh or eighth grader that just wanted to read, that had some, fantasy fiction, a little, out of the box, but still they could see themselves.
Right.
I get a lot of parents asking me about books for boys that are like boys that are over the age of 10.
Yes.
For Black boys.
For Black boys.
And
So that's what Terrence is for. That's for boys that are I've had some that have been like third grade, but primarily the target is fourth and fifth, and my beta readers were fourth and fifth.
Okay.
Fourth and fifth, and then the middle schoolers.
Okay. Yeah, I get a lot of that. Now, for my children's book series, what I did was I have 3 main characters, and it's 2 boys and a girl. So it can appeal to either one. Yeah, they're friends, and they do things together.
Right. So that's why Paris comes on the scene. She's in the book the whole series, but we actually get to see
Put
Paris
on the cover. Okay.
I put her on the cover, like Terrence's team in book number 3. And then when you buy Terrence's team, I have a set of those pink glasses. So the first ones, they get the pink glasses. So that's always something that kids love to get a gift along with it, and to get something with it. So they enjoyed the story.
You are right about people looking for children's books, because anytime I've gone out with my books, and I have books for, I don't have 68 books yet, but I have something.
Come on.
I don't know if I will get there, but I have something for everybody, because I have something for kids, teens, adults. I have a variety I have 13. So, but my children's books are the ones that get the most attention from people.
Most definitely.
And they'll buy the whole. I've been somewhat surprised, because I have 4. I'm working on book 5, but I have 4 in the series, and they're $12 a piece, and they'll buy all 4 of them and not even.
Oh no, they're not gonna blink, because remember, it's an investment into the next generation. So they're seeing it totally different. Okay, so prime example, they had the book fair at school. I'm not gonna name the book fair, no, but y'all know who it is. I'm right. So the book fair at school, and it didn't matter. None of the books had a Black child on it. None of the books. When I was doing the book fair when I was younger, it just was what it was. Okay. So therefore, when the Laura Ingalls set came out before the show, and all that, my mother bought the box set. I think it was $35, $40, because I was into it. Now, it didn't matter to me that Laura Ingalls was a little white girl in Kansas in the wheat fields. I didn't know nothing about that. I'm in Kentucky with tobacco. But, she was in the wheat field, but it was reading. It was something enjoyable. I loved to read it. Didn't matter what it was. I was always have been a ravenous reader. But today, children want books with people on the cover
that look like them.
They're not going to do Dick, Jane, and Spot. No. If they're a Black child, they want to be reading something that represents them. So that's one of the main reasons why African-American children's books are so hot, or diverse children's book, period. And they need all hues, all colors, they need the girl with the Afro puff bobbles, but then they need the long ponytails, and then they need the curls. The biracial babies, they want to see curls. They don't want to see, my hair is too long to be into Afro puffs. It won't do that. So having that diversity and what that looks like does make all the difference in the world as far as sales of children's books.
But now, we know about, people are looking for books, but how do you encourage someone who says, okay, I hear you. The people are looking for children's book authors, but all of the topics are written about already. I don't know what I should write about.
Well, first off, go get you some kids. Ask what they're interested. you know, and they're children. So, you know, boys like trucks, boys like, you know, cars and those kind of things. Ask them. If you don't know, see, it's different for me. Having taught for 22 years, I can ask kids. I've been around kids. I know what they like. I know what they're interested in. I know how traumatizing it is to be bullied. I know what that's like to be picked on, and you are smart, but somebody teases you because you are smart. And instead of them saying, I need to sit by you and let you help me, they tease them because they're smarter or whatever. So I know what that's like to be wearing glasses and the whole 9 yards. I know what that's like as a human being. And then I know what that's like to be academic and you love it and everything about it, but then somebody's always making fun of you about it. So that was number one for me. I know what it's also like. I'm working on a children's book now that really emphasizes creatives. We get the sports get a lot of attention. The celebrity types get a lot of attention. But what about the baby who wants to draw? What about the baby who plays piano? What about the baby who might be interested in, you know, painting or sculpting? Or what about the animation babies? What about the coding babies? So I'm doing something that's dedicated that same age range, but these are girls. These are girls who are into the arts and the creative arts, because I think they don't get as much play. But number one, if you don't know, ask some children. What are y'all interested in? What do you like? What appeals? Because Gwen was right. The illustrations are the most important, and they appeal to the child. The front cover, the illustrations in the side, they're not worried about the words. The story, they'll get later. But what appeals to the story, of course, is the parents, is the librarians and the principals who allow you to have those books in schools. It needs to connect to an academic area, or it can be, you know, reading for fun and reading for enjoyment, but hopefully there's an angle that will help with academic push and moving forward. So that's my suggestions.
Okay. You know, we established this year the Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards, and we're giving the awards away at the festival. But the process, we have 7 categories, and each category has 2 levels, K through grade 6, and then age 12 plus. And the submissions have been very diverse and interesting. I will say people need to invest in a good illustrator.
Yes, you do.
Because you don't want your pictures to be like not high resolution, you know, fuzzy, like they've been copied, or I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what.
Just that is, I think, and a lot of authors who have come on the show have said it, that they want the illustrator to reflect what they have in mind when it comes to their characters. They've created their characters, but every illustrator may be a good illustrator, but they may not be able to really create that character that reflects the character that you created.
Exactly. And so therefore you have to be, that may take time. I've known people with books that wait for years before they do it because they don't have the right illustrator to be able to to be able to connect with that. And that is vital and definitely important. Also, the illustrator has to be able to bring the vision to life, but the author needs to make sure that you are able to explain specifically and as explicitly as possible what that vision is. I've had authors come to me and say, well, the illustrator is just going to design. Here's the story and they can go for it. I said, not over here. We don't do that over here. You might think that, oh, but I thought just because they draw, I said, baby, you have a clue what they will come up with.
No.
And people who draw well with their own inspiration and imagination, but they don't translate. And I've found several of them who do not translate your vision. You can't tell them what their vision is, and they make that come to life.
Right.
There are a few that can, but there are a few that they really draw well for themselves. They can't draw well for someone else.
Right.
So you have to be able to, that's a hint for anyone. Now, the people I work with, I make sure of it, but If you're doing it on your own, if you're self-publishing on your own, be sure that you're able to do that. Make them give you a markup. We start off with black and whites before we start anything. Before you color anything, I want to know that the black and white looks like what the vision was. Nope, those lips are too big. Nope, the head is too big. Nope, we said the Afro puffs need to be bigger. So we work with the black and white even before we get to color. Don't have them do all the color illustrations. No, that's not what I want. Oh, if you don't have the main character right, how are you going to fill trees and houses and cars and schools in the background? And then, no.
That's true. And a couple of things also when looking for illustrator, because I had 2 different illustrators for the project. For my series, I've used the same person just so I can have consistency with the imagery. You know, I mean, but for my other book, Boss Women, it was actual people. So this is more of a biography of 7 women. I needed the person to be able to duplicate a photograph and turn it into an illustration of an actual person.
Portrait. So I have to tell people, okay, is this a caricature based on somebody?
Right.
Or are they doing a portrait?
Right.
Some people get them confused because they're like, oh, I don't like, because I said, no. Are we creating a portrait of them? That's different. And that's a different illustrator style. Or are we basing the illustration? This was based on something else, because I don't have no kids, so I couldn't give him no pictures of my own children. So I had to base it on several things, putting it together, and then we come up with an original illustration. But
every artist is not the same. There are some. I remember one of the artists to create a book cover for me because I loved his art, but he could not take his art and translate it into what I needed it to be.
Yes.
If it were a picture on the wall, would have been amazing. But for a book cover, it just wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to take those things into consideration.
And those things don't necessarily always translate. So you have to understand that, and you need to have, samples, and you may have to pay for them. Some people don't necessarily do that for free. They don't do those samples for free. Some do. It just all depends on the arrangement of it. Now, the other thing when we're talking about children's book legally, make sure that you have a work for hire agreement, because you will have some illustrators who say, I want 50% of royalties, 25% of royalties. I want rights to the book. Make sure that you have those agreements in black and white. We made mistakes, so I'll be the first one to say, I confess. When you don't know, now I know, I won't do that again.
It's paid fee for service. It's just I'm paying you for these pictures right here, and at the end, when I get the final ones, that's the end of our agreement for this, and I paid you.
Now they still have to be on the copyright application. They still have to be listed as the illustrator on the copyright application. But there's a little box in there that says work for hire.
Right.
That box that says work for hire, so they won't come back on you saying, is that 50%? Do they get half? Well, how's that work?
Yeah, and then there's some illustrators. Well, look at their portfolios too. You can tell a lot from a portfolio, and you should, look. And if they don't have a portfolio, then you shouldn't even deal with them. But they need to have some examples of their work, extensive ones. But also some people, their style is the same or very similar. There's some illustrators, and it's one in particular, I won't name the person, but I know that he illustrated
there's
a children's book. I know it's him. Now I don't know if that's good necessarily, because they start to look the same for all the different books, and then it's not for different people. It's like, I don't know, but they're good, but it's
their style. It's their style. Yeah, I know several of them who do that. You can look at them and tell them, but it's just like the Impressionists or any of the other artists and painters. When I look at it, when I see a Van Gogh, I know that's Van Gogh. When I see him,
right. And two, people shouldn't be intimidated by cost, because there is a wide range of pricing for illustrators.
Oh yeah.
It is really, it's huge.
Right. And some of the
So
most expensive ones I was like, that's not good. And some of them, I'm like, you pay what for that?
yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, I see why you did it. It's like they leaping off the page, they're coming at you. And the kids love it. And when they walk by, they're like, yeah. I mean, I've had them pull the book off the table and the mama said, well, he ain't letting it go, or she's gonna fall out on the floor. How much is it? And I gotta buy it. I'm thinking, thank you, baby. Appreciate that. I'm winking the baby, say, thank you, baby.
yeah, those kids can sell some books for you,
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. I've been a lot of places. Believe you me, I've seen a lot of it. I really, really have, and it's been a really a wonderful experience. So
yeah, it's amazing that the book fairs, and we all know who it is, but they haven't come up to date with their selection.
They working on it. But in the meantime, I do my own book fair. So
well, you're right. That's an opportunity for a lot of people.
I'm going for it, and I've done some this year, and they've been very, very successful. So if you're interested, 20% goes to your organization or your school, and I know they're various, whatever. But whatever you want to do, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. And I have no problem bringing my books to you. So we can make that happen.
Well, and that's like filling a void or a vacuum. So
oh, most definitely, especially schools that have predominantly African-American, Black and brown babies. They roll by there and they stop at the toys and the posters and the little, the little stuffed animals and stuff is where they hang out rather than the books, because they don't see themselves.
Right. And I volunteered at an African-American school during these book fairs, and they don't have the money. These books are expensive.
Yes, so they are.
Even if they do see people who look like them on the cover, which they normally don't.
Right.
You'll see the kids, they have to kind of walk in a line to look at all the books, and they look at the books, and then they walk right back out the library because they don't have the money to buy the books.
Right. Well, I have a policy, 1 for 10, 2 for 15, because I want my babies to be able to walk away with a book. I want them to be able to have a book in their hand and a backpack bag and and other things that, a bookmark and a whole lot of other things. And, I've done stuffed animals this year and pencils, all kinds of stuff. But I want them to be able to do that. I had a father call me, he said, something about a school, we having a book fair. I said, no, sir, it was during February, it was Black History Month. And I said, no, I'm the publisher and we're having a book fair. And she said she needs $10. I said, yes, sir. It's a 1 for 10 and 2 for 15. She get $10. Bye, have a good night. I was like, okay. But I mean, that baby was on her head. She was getting that money out of the daddy any way she could. But most of the time when it's African-American person, they're like in the group, but they're not in the front. They're like part of the group or the gang or the group, but they want to see them as the main character. Main character. Why can't we?
Right, not just the sidekick. We're through with that.
No. Why can't we be the main character? So.
Well, Julia, we're at the end of our time. I do want to let people know. I know it does. One, thank you. BK Royston Publishing is a sponsor of the Black Authors Matter TV Awards. So you'll see that show in 2 weeks from now. And also, Julia will be at this year's National Black Book Festival with the Publishers Exhibit and she's bringing some people with her, I think. Are you bringing any people?
Oh, yes, ma'am. They already there. They meet me there. They there in Houston.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So some of her authors are going to be there with her as well. And she's doing a seminar also on self-publishing. So Julia is very active in the house.
The email, the publishers panel. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm in. Let's do this. Yay!
Yeah. So we really appreciate you being on the show. And I'll see you in October, if not before.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, you too. Good night. Okay, as we bring on our final guest, her name is her pen name is Black Diamond. Did anyone win the book Map Maker?
I think, what was the answer? I think,
The answer is Van, V-A-N.
well, okay. Tony Bonita answered, but she said Vance. Are you gonna give it to her?
Well, if no one else has answered it to this point,
Lydia
then
behind her said Vance too.
oh, okay. So two people got it wrong. So I'm not gonna give it to anybody then, because I can't figure out who. So anyway, that's one for maybe I'll do it again in a month and somebody will get it. So
Lydia just said Van.
yeah, we are, it's VAN. So we are happy to welcome to the show author Black Diamond. She has several books, and one of them, her latest one, I believe, is a children's book, but she's going to tell us about her work. And she's trying to get her camera together.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV, and I see you're representing with your t-shirt.
Yes, ma'am.
So welcome to the show, and tell us about your background and how you got started with writing books.
I have been writing since I was 11. I actually started with horror/thriller. I was a huge fan of R.L. Stine, so my first writing was at the age of 11. But after I lost my sight at the age of 15, I thought my writing journey was over because, at the time I knew nothing about being blind or how I would be able to continue to write until I taught myself Braille. And then I found that I was able to continue to actually write. So I started writing in Braille until computers, became available and became accessible for people who are blind. So then I actually started, typing out my stories. And that's basically how I still write to this day. I started my publishing journey in 2016 when I became a feature poet in an anthology of poetry. So that's basically how I first started, gained the title of author. And then in 2016 is when I self-published my first novel. And then I've been publishing ever since, self-publishing. And then I also started my own home-based publishing company where I, go through everything and publish everything myself. And yeah, that's kind of how I started.
Now, so something that struck me is you said you taught yourself Braille.
Yes.
Now, how did you do that? Because it seems like that's kind of difficult because you have to. I mean, I've felt Braille before, and it's seemed pretty difficult. So how were you able to teach yourself?
Well, I actually got introduced to it because my sister, who was in the 4th grade at the time, I guess they were learning like the history of Louis Braille, the guy who actually created Braille. And so she brought home an autobiography of him. It was a paperback book, but it just so happened to, on the back of it, it had the basic Braille alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically I studied it and I memorized it, and I would test myself on it and kind of like randomly just, fill on the page to try to see, if I could remember what the letters were. And so that's basically how I taught myself the basic Braille. Mm-hmm. And then once I went to school, I learned what we call grade 2, which is a more advanced shorthand Braille. Mm-hmm. And so I mastered that in like 2 months. And so they actually hired me to be a Braille tutor because I was so determined to continue to read and to continue to write, because like that's what I did my whole entire life, even before going blind. And I always wanted to be an author.
Yes. Wow.
Well, certainly your dedication, even losing your sight, should be an inspiration for people who are procrastinating and saying they don't have what they don't have. So you have what whatever you have is enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Nobody has an excuse after watching the
Right.
I know I get that a lot. Whenever I do interviews, that's what people always say. They was like, oh my gosh, like not even I don't have an excuse. The person that's like hosted the show, that's what they always say. So they kind of nicknamed me No Limits.
I love it. Well, I will tell you, I recently published an anthology, and during the course of getting to know the authors who were a part of my anthology, I found that two of the authors who are in the anthology are not only legally blind, they are blind. And
yeah, total. Yes, I'm totally
blind. And I was like, how in the world? That's it. For me, I was inspired. And I, basically, and you probably do some of the same things that they were doing. They had the readers so they could kind of listen to the story as they were reading per se, or as they were writing. They had all of this different technology that they were using. One of them had a talker, I guess, for when she used her phone. And so
dictation. Dictation.
Right. And I'm wondering that, did you kind of adapt some of that technology as you lost?
Use a screen reader. That's how I'm able to use a computer. I learned how to type before losing my sight, but then I had to learn how to type all over again, learning the technology. So yeah, that's how I actually, write my books. I type out everything on the computer. I also edit my books myself. I taught myself how to edit. And then when it comes to like, cover design, formatting, things like that, I just hire someone to do that type of stuff for me. And then as far as publishing it, I published them all myself.
Wow. So you just did everything yourself. You were going to be an author by any means necessary.
Yes, definitely.
So how do you settle on the cover for your book?
I actually tell my illustrator exactly how I want my covers to be. And she basically does exactly what I tell her as far as illustrations, as far as because she does do my illustrations as well. And so I even though I'm not able to see anymore, I still know what things look like. So I'm able to give her a detailed enough description that she knows how to actually do exactly what I'm asking for.
Okay. Well, now, do they have, is the talk where you talk and your words are on the screen, is that perfected enough for you to use something like that, or do you type your books?
I prefer to type mine myself.
Okay. I wondered how good. I know one thing I hate is though when you call a big organization and they have a person, it's not a real person, it's a computerized voice, and they tell you, I can understand,
yeah.
brief questions or whatever, and then you tell them what you want. I don't understand that, and then they go through the numbers, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And I'm like, okay, customer service. I just say customer service over and over. And I don't want to talk to this machine. So I don't know how well they perfected that voice technology yet.
Well, as far as the typing goes, that part is basically, it's called a screen reader. And whatever you type in, it just echoes it back to you. So
so that part, when you're typing and it talks, but I meant when you talk and
that's a hit or miss when it comes to dictation.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So that's why I prefer to actually type, because I would be spending more time editing and going back and correcting than I would if I just typed it out.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I didn't know if it had gotten better since the last time I investigated it. That was supposed to be like the answer for everything, for transcripts and any kind of dictation or anything. But even the closed captions on the TV, they have wrong words.
Oh yeah.
4 media roundtables for my day job, and we recorded every roundtable, and I had to go through word by word through those transcripts, and you should see the amount of things that the dictation got wrong.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we had to read word by word to correct everything, and then listen to the recording to make sure that it wrote what was actually supposed to be said. It took me forever to do that.
Yeah, like doctors even do that. They, dictate into like the recorder, and then the transcriptionist has to go back and transcribe everything that they said. Like that is very time consuming.
It's very difficult. My first business when we were on the show previously, like the Dolen was on, I was talking about my early company that I had did transcriptions for medical facilities. Doctors are the worst dictators. It's horrible. You have to actually know what they meant to say, because this is garble. But they're very, very persnickety about getting everything correct, and you can barely understand what they're saying. And these are complicated words, 16 words for 16 and 20 letters, and names of instruments and procedures.
Certified in medical billing and coding, so I definitely,
yeah.
Well, a lot of that was my certification.
Yeah, and I said, there's no way they can have that, because the way they talk, there's no way that a machine could know what they're saying, because a human doesn't even know what they're saying, just barely. So,
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us what you have a new book called Animal Alphabet A to Z. Now, is that a children's book?
Yes, it's a children's picture book.
Okay. And is it?
Oh, go ahead.
Is it for new readers? Like for what age group is it for?
I do it probably like, from infants to like 6.
Okay.
It is an illustrated alphabet concept book, basically introducing children to learning how to recognize the alphabet. And what I did was, like, for instance, I did like A is for ant. And then, my illustrator, she did, an illustration, and I did like a fun fact about each animal. So ants, I did like ants are the smallest, insects in the world, but they're the strongest. And so for each letter, there's a animal, and then there's a fact, and then there's a sentence, with that letter and also with that animal, so that, they can recognize the letters, the animals, and also learn something, fun about that actual animal.
Oh, okay. Now, do you have a copy of your book with you?
Yeah, I do. It's right here.
Okay. All right. That's great. Can you open the inside so we can see some of what's inside?
Okay, let's see. The book is dedicated to my son. I have a 3-year-old.
Okay.
He kind of inspires all of my children's books, actually.
Yeah, children can be inspirational for a lot of things. So you have to, okay, so that's where it starts there. A is for ant, and then you have the dolphin. It looks like a page got torn.
Yeah, I think I got it torn. Yeah.
But that's nice. You have E is for elephant, F is for frog. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's
And
really
I like
nice.
the fact that the letters are big. These are for kids, and they can trace the letters, they can experience the photos. So I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of reading is word recognition or word association, like associating a word with a picture.
Yeah. When I first got my first copy, just a proof copy, just to make sure everything was, the way it should be, he was able to actually identify every letter, every animal. The only one he had a problem with was quail. He thought it was a turkey. It kind of looked like, so I give you that. It was very easy for him to recognize. And so I felt like him kind of being able to it get exactly what the whole purpose of the book is, was definitely a good sign for me that everything is going to be the same for other children as well.
Oh, okay. Now, Mary said that she uses Otter, which dictates wonderfully, Otter.
Oh,
She
yes.
put it in the chat. So I've never heard of it, but
Either, actually.
have you heard about it, Black Diamond?
No, I actually have not.
Okay, so that could be something useful. And now Lydia asked, did you ever come to Houston? But I don't know if that was for Black Diamond or the previous guest. Maybe.
I will be there in October.
Okay, at the festival.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. So you'll be at the National Black Book Festival as well. So
Yes.
that's fun. So is someone coming with you?
Yes. I have my assistant, she'll be with me, and then my babysitter, she'll be keeping my son until the children's festival.
Okay, that's on Saturday. Do you use a service animal? I'm just curious.
No, I don't.
So how do you get around? Do you use a
white cane?
Okay.
In my case, pink cane, because pink is my favorite color. So
okay.
I custom my cane.
Okay, well, I'm just really inspired by your ability to not quit and just say, well, okay, how can I make this happen? How can I get this done? And
Right.
You did it.
You made it happen, and you just decided to do everything yourself. I said you've taken away everybody's excuses.
Right.
They can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So anybody can do it. That's really what you're doing. It just takes determination, because you were determined and you didn't let sight impediment stop you.
Nope, not at all.
That's just amazing. Now tell us about, you have some other titles too. You say you have seven titles, or is it 8?
This is my third children's book, actually, this one.
Okay.
The first one is a poetry for tots, and then the second one is more poetry for tots.
Okay.
And our same basic picture books, just with short introductory poems for children. All of it are dealing with like things dealing with being a toddler, like potty training and bath time and, toys, nap time, those type of things. And of course, my son inspired all of those. So I started with poetry for tots, and then I still had more poems that I wanted to do. And so I did more poetry for tots as a second version. Basically, that one is a little bit more educational because it deals with like learning the ABCs, learning the body parts, counting, that type of thing. Okay. So it's a little bit more than the first one.
Okay, and I see that you're in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yes,
I have lots of roots there. My sister lives there. My sister went to Bennett College. My brother-in-law, her husband, went to A&T. I've been there more times than I can count. I couldn't even count. This doesn't, because my daughter went to North Carolina Central, and so in Durham, which is about 45 minutes away. So I've spent a lot of time in Greensboro just over the years. We used to do a road trip every year from Houston, just so to visit my sister, and we would spend time there. And then once my daughter went to college there, we were there twice a year, taking her to school and bringing her back. So we spent a lot of time. And both of my parents are from North Carolina too. They're deceased, but they're both from North Carolina, Hillsborough and Mebane. That's what my parents.
Devin is not far from here at all. Like
no, all that stuff is right there together. So what do you have? Authors who write multiple books are always working on another book. So they always have something in the hopper, one or two, or maybe more.
Because I also do adult titles as well. I'm just more focusing on my children right now, but I do have an adult coming up. But yeah, my next children's that I'm working on is another 2-part book. It's called I Can Be. and it is a picture book dealing with professions.
Okay.
So basically, it's a book showing children, you know, all the different professions that they can be when they grow up. All they basically have to do is pick one. There are so many options, you know, from, you know, just everything you can think of. And I basically, you know, just every sentence starts with I can be, you know, a doctor, I can be a mechanic, I can be, you know, and then I have like something about what that profession does. And my illustrator, she's actually working on the illustrations right now. Basically, we're going to have it so where children are actually dressed as the professions, so that it will kind of, you know, fit for children to see, you know, what they actually can be. All they basically have to do is believe it and achieve it.
And by seeing images of themselves looking like these professions, what it does is it kind of shows them what's possible.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, that's great that you have your son involved as a inspiration for writing. Yeah.
He has working on his first book.
Oh boy. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. So what direction is he going in terms of what's the topic?
He has a very vivid imagination. So he's into like dinosaurs, and he's into, you know, different animals. So one is called Devin the Dino. And it's going to be a Halloween story, basically, where a little boy who, you know, wants to dress as a dinosaur for Halloween. And then there's another one, is called Devin the Dog, because he likes to pretend like he's a dog.
Okay.
And then he also has one, he's just got glasses. He's 3. So one's called Devin's New Glasses, and it basically is going to detail his first visit to the eye doctor, and how he got his new glasses, and how I let him pick out his, you know, his first pair, and then I picked out one. So he got to actually choose, and of course his glasses has dinosaurs on them. And so those are the 3 books I'm actually working on with him. Right now I'm actually working with my illustrator as well to actually transpose his picture and make him actually the character, so that he can actually star in his own book.
Oh,
I'm
gonna love that.
That's
Yeah.
great. It's good for children to see themselves in books and movies and, you know, all kinds of things, as long as it's positive.
Yes.
You know, you want them to do that. I tell people I have my most successful book actually is about going to college debt free. My daughter was the inspiration for that, because I was determined that she wasn't going to have all the student loan debt. And so, you know, that inspired me to do a tremendous amount of work. I spent 5 years making sure she could be debt free, but she graduated from NCCU with not $1 of debt, which was
Wow.
I was so glad when it was a lot of work. You know, I just had my head down for 5 years, but when it was over, it was a relief, you know, almost to where I was like, I spent so much time researching and doing all that for the scholarships that once it was over, I was like, okay, I had to like have a release, because it was like, what do I do? I spent so much time on it. So, but
Well,
our children.
Yeah, I was just gonna say congratulations on your because we're running out of time. I want to make sure to let people know where they can find your books.
Yes.
This book is actually available on Amazon, Walmart.com, Target, basically all the major online retailers. You can find it.
Okay.
And then you have a website as well.
Yes, I do.
And what's your website? I'm going to put it in the chat for you.
WriterBlackDiamond.com.
Awesome. WriterBlackDiamond.com. And then just so people will know, it's BLAQUE.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I am putting that in the chat right now.
Okay.
Well, Black Diamond, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. And we look forward to seeing you at the National Black Book Festival in
Yes.
Houston, October 20th through the 22nd. And
Yes.
we'll get to see all of your books that you're going to be bringing with you.
Yeah. Be bringing all of my children's books.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, you've been an inspiration, and I hope people who are watching, if you've been watching and you may have been procrastinating about writing your book, there's no need to procrastinate. You can do it. Just
Not at all. Not at all.
set your goal and actually get it done. So thank you so much, and you have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's been another wonderful episode of Black Authors Matter TV. I do want to encourage everybody to anticipate the award show that we'll be doing on May 17th. And the whole show that night, which is 2 weeks from now, will be dedicated to just the awards. And it's really going to be an amazing night. We have more people this time because we have 16 categories instead of 11. Last year we had 11 categories. So we have more finalists involved, and we have entertainment, of course. And it's just going to be an amazing night. So I am looking forward to it. Next week, we have another wonderful lineup of guests. Let me just give a rundown really quickly. We have for next week, we have AJ Verdell, who's an award-winning novelist. We have a comic book creator. This is our first one. We've been wanting to have one on for a while. Absalom White Jr. And I think he's only about 21 or 22, but he's a comic book creator. He'll be on. We have Gary Phillips, who's a mystery thriller writer. He's been writing for a long time. He has a new book out. And we have actress and author Daphne Maxwell Reid, who you may remember as Aunt Vivian from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She has a cookbook, and also she has a series of books about doors from around the world. So that's our lineup for next week. That's all for tonight. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. You all have a wonderful night and a wonderful week.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.